Track Record with your hosts Mike Shea and Robert Yetter. Brought to you by Eventide Entertainment. Hey, what's up, guys? This is Mike Shea.
And I'm Robert Yetter.
And this is the new episode of Track Record. So, the way this show is going to work is it's going to be myself and Robert. We are every week going to assign each other an album to listen to. We each have a week to listen to the album and collect our thoughts and our feelings about it. And then we meet back up here every week and share our feelings. So, this is the first time we're doing this, and I think we gave each other some weird stuff. Little weird for our tastes, I think.
Well, your selection for me, I believe, is the weird one. Not to be a dick, but my selection for you is pretty standard as far as the metal sphere goes.
Yeah, mine was on purpose. It was intentionally meant to be just so far off of what the norm is. I think just because
I figured
shock value for shock value more than anything. So
it's okay. I will say some shocking things about it. Hopefully, I think that it's funny.
When I initially told you my score of the one you gave me, I think you were a little caught off guard. Honestly, I'm going to justify my feelings, but you know.
I was, because I personally am in love with the album, but it is, I think it's a very great example of metal in 2017 in general, actual metal, that I think is pretty universal for anyone who likes metal, but maybe perhaps you felt differently, so we'll see.
We'll see. What I do like is that we both picked albums from this year. Both of these albums came out this year, so they're both pretty new, pretty fresh. So I think that that's a good way to kick things off. I got some old stuff for you coming up in a little bit, but well, not old, but
yeah. My next one for you is, I believe, 2015. I might have that wrong, but
see, I think
a little older.
I think mine's 2014 or 2013, 2014. It came out when I was still living down in the Carolinas when we were hanging out down there. But it's a good one. So
the good old South Crack.
South Crack. All right. Well, let's have you go ahead and start off with the one I gave you. Let's hear what you got.
All right. So you gave me "No Grave But the Sea" by Alestorm. All right.
Hell yeah.
And like you said, this came out this year. Now, Alestorm hails from Perth, Scotland. They're a fan-dubbed pirate metal band. But you know what comes to mind when I think Alestorm? Semi-digested pizza chunks floating in my toilet.
Wow.
All right. An Alestorm, right? That's just a conglomerate of vomit. with an aroma reminiscent of brown sugar and sourdough pretzels. This band makes me want to create an Alestorm. All right. That being said, I like the name of the band and the title of the album.
Okay.
Both show a devotion to a dirty, drunken, salty, chafe-inducing pirate way of life. Unfortunately, this band's music doesn't live up to their name. I'm dubbing them the Pirate Power Metal Bowling for Soup. All right?
Wow.
That's how I feel. Except this band doesn't know whether they want to perform parody or sincere, visceral pirate jams. All right? They skirt that line on this album. They dodge between silliness and, sea-dwelling imagery. Some of it's pretty cool. But it's really kind of, I think they need to stick with one or the other. They really haven't picked, I didn't listen to any of their older stuff, so I'm not sure, but I'm guessing it's pretty much, I don't know how many pirate songs you can actually make. I think there's about 3.5 pirate riffs out there. but I could be wrong. This band is gimmicky. I half expected going into my listening campaign with this band that it could be sincere, some sincere dark pirate metal. Like if you look at the album cover, it's kind of a dilapidated looking like sea pirate dead guy, and it looks pretty cool. So it could be like, I was thinking it might have been some really cool visceral like sea-faring metal, but I was wrong. So, and you know, based on how like the name is stylized on the album cover, kind of that metal stylization, I was like, okay, this might be okay because it's got the flair to it, but not so much. No Grave But the Sea is not creative, and it is not enjoyable. It's about as creative as Gary Busey taking a spicy rum dump. It's about as enjoyable as being constipated for 3 days after a masturbation-induced exotic cheese binge. Putting this music upon your ears is like huffing glue, except with no fun high, just dead brain cells. It probably took me longer to write these insults than it took Alestorm to write Alestorm's entire discography. Now, Mike, all right.
Holy shit.
Those were my best insults. I put my all into.
I applaud you, sir.
If I don't mention Gary Busey at least one time, then no fun. All right, to top things off, No Grave But the Sea is packaged as having an optional deluxe edition. All right. Now, this deluxe version of No Grave But the Sea includes the regular album with a bonus disc that is exactly the regular album in its entirety, except all the vocals have been replaced by pitch-manipulated computer dog barks.
You found the dog bark album. Oh my god.
Okay? Let that sink in for a minute. I'm not making this up, audience. It's real.
It's legit. It's totally real.
All right, and this deluxe version bonus disc is cleverly titled No Grave But the Sea, 4 Dogs. And every single song in that bonus disc is the song title plus 4 dogs. Okay? It's really terrible.
Wow.
All right. Listening to the 4 Dogs versions of these songs is like watching Gary Busey wipe happy tears from his eyes using a shit-stained, moist towelette. My favorite song on the album, we'll get to that. There was one song that I liked. It wasn't terrible. It was called To the End of the World. It's my favorite because it has a serious tone. The musicians seem like they gave a shit for the recording of the song. It has some actual creativity to it. It has really good sounding drums and really good sounding horn. I'm not sure what type of horn, trumpet, but it's a good horn.
I think it's an accordion, actually.
Really?
I think they use an accordion. I'm thinking of a different song. Never mind. I'm sorry.
But regardless, if it was an accordion, that'd be cool too. It's the only song on the album that didn't make me want to Cleveland steam myself. All right. So
my microphone.
I give No Grave But the Sea by Alestorm 1 purple star out of 4.
Jesus.
1 star. See, before we started this, I didn't know we were doing half stars, and so it would have. In reality, it's a half star, but I didn't make a half star graphic, so I'm going to put up my 1 star graphic. Boosh. All right. So okay, someone out there needs to create a serious pirate metal. It might exist, but Alestorm is not something that scratches the pirate metal itch. Okay. there is, I think that if they want to be successful moving forward, for people who take music seriously, they should look to bands that perform Viking metal, right? I think that's kind of the closest genre, pretty much, to pirate metal. But Viking metal is so much more intense, and I think that they take a page from the book. So, Alestorm, nice try, but really, it was just terrible. And I don't know what you guys were thinking when you made your album with just dog barks. I don't know what drug does that. It has to be alcohol, I guess, because I don't know. I feel like if you do any other drug, it makes you funnier.
Jesus Christ.
That's not a an advertisement to do drugs. I'm just saying.
Right. Man.
Okay. Just as a sidebar for this podcast, I chose to get the Old Smoky moonshine with the cherries. is very delightful.
I'm guessing you needed it after listening to the album.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should have got drunk before I listened to that. Perhaps it could have been better. Also, to the audience, you can see that I'm wearing a Thy Art Is Murder shirt, and that is the same band that I gave Mike to listen to for this week. I wanted to represent because they are one of my favorites. Okay, I will pass it off to you, Mike.
Okay. I'm gonna take a moment and rebuttal a little bit. I am a fan of Alestorm. You know, for me, you know how much I love pirate stuff. I mean, I just did an entire week-long camping trip as a pirate, so
yes.
But first of all, to answer your question, there are more serious pirate metal bands out there. There's one called Swashbuckle.
Okay.
That their sound overall, I think, is more in the vein of like Amon Amarth. You mentioned Viking metal, so
yep.
You might want to check them out. I like Alestorm in the same vein that like I like Psycho Stick. I know it's for the most part just kind of a huge joke.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's just what I need.
Yeah, but how far can you take that joke? I mean, I think they've made at least 3 or 4 albums.
They've made 5. Just studio albums, plus a couple of EPs. One of the covers they've done was actually of You Are a Pirate from Lazy Town. I don't know if you remember that show, but it's actually a pretty good cover. They did but yeah, I mean, like they're one of those bands. Like I don't take a damn thing they do seriously. For me, it's just I need something stupid, something that like when I was living down in the Carolinas, when I was hanging out with my pirate guys more often, we would always have like that playing in the background because we were doing pirate stuff and we were drinking, so it worked out.
Okay, I can see how it would set a mood.
It's good
for something like that.
If you're setting a very specific mood, it's good for something like that. It's gimmicky. I feel you as far as sometimes they're gimmicky, sometimes they're serious, and I kind of want them to pick one or the other.
Yeah.
But I feel like when they're serious, they're really on point. Like when they're really delving into pirate lore and stuff like that. And I feel like the stuff that's silly is silly enough for me when I just need... It's like, okay, I have the option to watch either an Agatha Christie murder mystery detective story on Netflix, in which I need to be involved and paying attention and keeping track of what's being said and what's happening.
Right.
Or I can throw on Family Guy and just get lost in the silliness of it.
I feel you.
So
I don't know. I really don't know that I have that capacity. For me, if it's, I don't know. It's not kind of numbing in that sense. Maybe not numbing so much, but it's more for you just kind of an escape. But I couldn't help but, if I was, to do that, I would have to, I would have to concentrate on it and just be like, oh my God, Yeah,
there's a certain level of disconnect involved, and it's not a good or a bad thing. It's just some people have that level of disconnect and some don't, and for some it just depends on what it is. With music, I can understand you maybe not having that same level of disconnect as I might have. You're a more serious musician than I am. I'm a more casual, take things as they go musician. You're more of there's a lot more passion and involvement in what you do. So maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but
I am kind of serious, aren't I?
I mean,
but I'm really. It's only my music, though. I'm really not serious in real life. I'm like the least serious person that I know.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like when it comes to music, that's like as serious as I've ever seen somebody get.
Some serious shit,
right? But in playing Destiny 2 with you and making jokes about spicy alien jizz, it's.
Oh yeah. No, I was playing today, and they who's whatever your little robot guy is. I'm so used to calling him the Dinklebot from the first one.
I just
because
call
of Peter
him,
Dinklage.
I call him Future Navi. I mean,
but he actually made kind of there's one mission, I think it's one of the strikes, where you go past a waterfall of the spicy white fucking robot alien jizz, and he makes a joke. I don't remember what he says, but I was like, they're totally referring to sperm right there. He always said something about and they say later that it's organic, so maybe they're not like fully robotic or whatever, so they're like ingesting this. They get many nutrients from the spicy white alien jizz.
All natural, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's like their version of vitamin D. You know what I'm saying?
Everybody needs some of that D.
All
right, so for next week, the one I'm going to give you is a bit more on the serious side. Now, don't get too caught up. I'm going to say the name of the band, and you're going to roll your eyes. And I can't see you right now, but I'm going to feel you rolling your eyes. So the album I'm giving you for next week is by Five Finger Death Punch.
Okay.
I heard the groan. But
all right,
it's they did a 2-part concept album a few years ago. It was in 2 discs. I'm only giving you part 1 because part 2.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't do that to you. But it's called The Wrong Side of Heaven and the Righteous Side of Hell, Volume 1.
Okay.
Now, you only need to really... Now, I also go ahead and preface that the album is 1 part an album and 1 part a live album. Not really concerned with the live album, obviously, just the actual studio album.
Okay.
And there are a few, alternate versions of some songs on there. You can listen to those if you want. But I... this is one that, like Alestorm, I picked Alestorm just because I wanted to see how you'd react. This particular Death Punch album, though, I actually hold in very high regard from an artistic standpoint. As someone who was late to the game on Death Punch, it was an album that I listened to, and it actually, impressed me. Because going into it, I was just kind of like, okay, this is going to be another generic Death Punch album. It's all going to be all about soldiers and fighting and violence, and it was actually, I felt like there was some heart put into it, and so I kind of want to see what you think of it.
That's what their albums are about?
Not always, but that's kind of, I mean, their name is Five Finger Death Punch, so, I mean, anybody who's not a fan can take from that, you know, at face value, but,
okay.
But I mean, they do have quite a few songs about that, but, and this one has some, but if this one feels like they took it a little more seriously than they had in the past. So,
right.
And I'm really curious to see what you think of the very first song on there, because there's a special guest on it, and I think they fit in pretty well. So that's the one I'm giving you for next week.
Okay. I will reveal mine to you after your review of the album that I gave you this week.
All right. So with that, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, I'm going to give my thoughts on the album that Robert assigned to me for the show. So stay tuned. Are you into making music, videos, or podcasts? Are you a local comedic talent in need of some much-needed publicity? Are you a behind-the-scenes professional interested in audio-video production, graphic design, and public relations? Eventide Entertainment is actively seeking talents, clients, and professionals to help our business grow into something truly special. And we want you to be one of those. For more information, go to facebook.com/Eventide Entertainment or send us an email at eventideent@gmail.com. Hey there, podcast fans. Eventide Entertainment is proud to announce that we are now the new home for The Life with Don Smith. This show is recorded live every Wednesday on WWSU 106.9 FM. We bring you the full, unabridged, 2-hour special every Friday on Spreaker, YouTube, and of course, iTunes. Comedian Don Smith talks to comics and other local figures about movies, music, comedy, and life in general. Here's a clip from last week's show.
With the new semester starting, which, by the way, welcome back, everybody.
Oh, yeah. It is that time of year.
It is. This is welcome week. It's the first week of the new semester. Everybody is not yet ready to walk out. There are still people deciding whether or not they want to drop all their classes and disappoint their parents. And for me, it's too late. They were disappointed a long time ago.
This is the point where you decide whether or not you want to have a career with your name on your shirt.
Right. Which when I worked here, I had my name on my shirt.
I mean,
then I went back to where I used to work. Now I have an actual a badge.
Yeah, see,
with my name on.
I went from having a name tag to a name badge.
Yeah, that's moving up.
There is.
That's upward mobility.
When it goes from being plastic to laminated, that's when you know you've made it.
Well, yeah, that badge is important. It gets you in and out. You got to have it.
Get that little key fob with the microchip in it that scans you into the door. That's how you know you're on your way.
You've made it at that point. And I still got the janitor's keys jangling from my belt still, which so that's great too. That's another indicator of a success story.
Oh yeah, you've got access to things.
Oh yeah,
I'm
somebody now.
Make sure you check out The Life with Don Smith every Wednesday at noon on 106.9 FM and every Friday here on the Eventide Entertainment podcast feed. For more information, go to www.eventideent.com. And now, here's this. Welcome back, guys. We're here at Track Record. We just heard Robert's take on the album No Grave But the Sea by Alestorm, and it got a little bit spoiled a little bit earlier, but now it's going to be my take on an album that Robert assigned to me. This one, the album is called Dear Desolation, and it's by the band Thy Art Is Murder. So I'm going to read some deets off my phone here. The band Thy Art Is Murder are actually from Sydney, which I think some really good metal has come out of Australia in the last few years. Just Australia is finally making something out of themselves. Good for them. This particular album, Dear Desolation, came out beginning of this year in January, right around my birthday, I think. No, I'm sorry. August of this year. I don't know why I said January. I'm just going to roll with that, and I'm just leaving that in. I'm not even going to edit that out. This was I believe this was their first album in 2 years. They had to get a new vocalist. Because
that is incorrect.
Is that incorrect? Oh, I'm sorry. I read that wrong. Correct me real quick.
what happened was their lead vocalist C.J. McMahon left the band due to personal reasons, but then he came back.
Okay, so he did Holy War,
Right.
and then came back to do this album. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Did they have somebody filling in for them on tour while he was gone, or were they just not doing anything?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think that anyone could replace him. He's got one of those voices that is kind of, it's one of the more powerful screaming voices.
And that's one of the things I really did pick up on, because like we were talking during our break here, working in radio for over 10 years. Thy Art Is Murder is one of those band names that just kind of kept coming up, but I never really got invested in them, never really took the time to, and so this was kind of my first real dive into all that is Thy Art Is Murder. I haven't listened to the old stuff yet, but with this being my first kind of serious endeavor, I was impressed. When you hear a name like Thy Art Is Murder, your first thought is, this is going to be some really pretentious deathcore crap. Just taking it at face value. I mean, in all honesty, because we were talking in the first part, about Five Finger Death Punch. You hear that name, and your brain immediately goes just in one direction until it's either proven or rescinded. So, I'll start off. I'm gonna start off with some of the problems I had, so that I can end it on a good note with the pros. One of the things with me, and I'm weird when I listen to an album, because so many bands nowadays like to change or alter their style a little bit from album to album. I'm an unapologetic fan of Avenged Sevenfold, and they do that. They've been doing that with every album since day one. Every album sounds different.
Right.
All That Remains is a band who's done that a lot. It's kind of become almost like a trend in the last 10 years, I think. And so I tend to take every album as I try not to compare it to previous albums. Like when I listen to a new album from a band, it's, does this album stand on its own? Not, is it better or worse than the one that came before it?
Okay.
So I look at it as a standalone. So I treat this like this is their first album. For me, it really is. So, and then I also look at it in terms of, because this has been another trend that's gone on in the last 2 years, is like Metallica had their anniversary tour, so they played the Black Album beginning to end. Slipknot recently played their album Iowa beginning to end at a concert. Black Sabbath did that with one of their albums. So I look at it as, if this album was played beginning to end, did it start off strong? Like was the song arrangement, was it a good set list, I guess? And so one of the issues I had was I didn't love the opening track, only because it seemed like kind of a weak one to open the album with. Slaves Beyond Death. It of the songs on the album, I felt like it was actually the most generic. And so I would have, like, the title track, Dear Desolation, I think is really solid. I think they should have just opened with the title track, personally. So I thought that Slaves Beyond Death was just a weird one to open the album with. And I felt like the songs themselves on the album as a whole were just in kind of a weird, choppy order. There didn't seem like there was much flow to it. Like they just basically put them in one of those bingo machines, and whichever one came out next, that's the order it was in on the album.
Right.
So there was probably like it's because it's a 10-track album, which it's has kind of become the norm. You know, back in like the 90s, it was like 12 to 15. Now most bands do like 10.
Yeah,
and I think that's kind of the perfect number, honestly.
Yep.
So of the 10, I felt like 4 of them were just kind of like what I call background metal. Like if I was putting on a metal Pandora station just to have in the background, like while I was doing something. Slaves Beyond Death was one of those. And Man is the Enemy was another one. They weren't bad songs. It just I just listened to them. It was just kind of like, yeah, that's a death metal song. Other than that, going into the pros, the things I liked about the album, I thought the overall production quality was very good. Even bands that have been around longer than Thy Art Is Murder don't always put the most thought into the actual like production quality of the album. They just do what they've been doing for 15 years and say, well, if it ain't broken, don't fix it, which I get. But one of the things I love with metal albums, because I have my phone plugged in whenever I'm in the car, and I drive a lot. So I'm looking for I want my kick drums to really kick. Like, I want to feel like I'm getting punched in the gut every time the kick drum hits.
Yes.
Especially if they're going to do some machine gun fire, double rides. And so I got that with this. So that immediately was like, okay, they whoever mic'd the drum kit did it right, so we're good. I actually felt like there were 3 songs that stood out, and I kind of had to really pull teeth to pick a favorite, and that was Son of Misery, Puppet Master, and Death Dealer. Were the 3 that really stuck out to me the most. I think Son of Misery is probably my favorite. For one, I think the breakdown that's in Son of Misery is the most organic. It feels like, because there's a lot of songs, not necessarily on this album, but in a lot of death metal bands these days, who they just put a breakdown in there for the sake of a breakdown, and it doesn't feel like they properly built up to it. It's just like song. Now here's an obnoxious breakdown for 45 seconds.
Or you have the speaking of breakdowns, the pure deathcore that take the definition of deathcore, if that exists as a genre, to its extreme, and it like there's some bands where the entire song is essentially one long breakdown, and it sounds so weird, and so
yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm one of the like I love a good breakdown. Don't abuse the breakdown. Like I love whammy bar tricks on guitars. Don't abuse the whammy bar. Like
don't ever use the whammy bar. No, nobody playing guitar ever should use the whammy bar. Why?
It's like ketchup. Okay, ketchup is a great condiment. I don't want just ketchup. Okay, like I don't want to cover my fries in so much ketchup that I can't taste the fries. I still want to eat the fried potatoes and taste the fried potatoes. So when I'm listening to my metal,
just a bunch of wobbly ass sounds.
Yeah. I don't want just what I don't want just noise. I saw a band one time at Art Bar down in Columbia, and I don't remember the name of the band, and I didn't care to know, but it was just what I call noise metal, or scream porn. I was sitting outside. And the people sitting outside were just shitting on the band, like, this is why I don't like metal, blah blah blah. And I finally had to say, no, understand something right now. This is not metal. This is what people who don't listen to metal think metal sounds like.
Yeah, that
was not the case with this album, though. This album, like I said, 6 out of the 10 I thought were solid. There were 3 that I had. I had to pick my favorite from 3. There was only one song in particular that I was not in love with, and that again was "Slaves Beyond Death." That one, just for whatever reason, didn't ring true for me. But
okay,
I thought the album art was really cool too. I dig it. The whole wolf goat thing it was cool. I love it whenever they get. First of all, it was really well done art.
Yeah, they commissioned a guy who does kind of similar stuff. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but he does really cool. It's very it's a very disturbing kind of religious, tones to it, but it's really nice.
Yeah, I like the artwork on it a lot. So all in all, like I thought it was a solid album. It didn't really hit it didn't wow me, but having listened to this album, I now want to go listen to more of Thy Art Is Murder. So I guess it did its job at the end of the day.
Yep.
If your first introduction to a band is a particular album, that album's job needs to be to get you to go listen to other. So overall, I know we talked about this before. I'm gonna give it a 2.5 out of 4. I know I threw you a monkey wrench with the half star, but
it's okay. I got it, baby.
2.5 out of 4 because, like I said, it's right there in the middle. It's not great for me, but it's better than just okay. It's good. It's good.
Okay.
I give it a C. That's how I'm treating that. It's a C, a high C. But yeah, that's what I'm going with on this one. Not nearly as poetic as a thought process as you had for Alestorm, but we'll.
No, it's okay. I like you had more specific comments than I had on mine. I kind of was a blanket of diarrhea on top of on top of the band.
I honestly don't know what I expected, to be honest with you, but it was cool to hear it put to words. But yeah, 2.5 for Dear Desolation by Thy Art Is Murder.
Okay, rebut.
Okay.
The song that you disliked the most, Slaves Beyond Death, was actually the first single that they put out in promotion for this record. Okay. And I wasn't a fan of it either, and I really still am not a. It's just it. I would think that they chose that one to really kind of put themselves in a different direction. If you ever watch, or listen to interviews with their singer CJ, or any of them, they have kind of this. I don't know if it might be pretentious, but they have this want not to be called deathcore, and their 2012 album Hate was pretty much a definition of deathcore. Lots of breakdowns, really brutal album. But so I think that they chose Slaves Beyond Death to kind of distance themselves away from that genre. 'Cause it has a solo, which is not a very featured thing in a lot of deathcore, and they had a lot of solos in other songs in the album too. So I think that's kind of what they were doing with that. But it's really it is very it's not exciting. I don't know. I expect exciting stuff from them.
The word I just keep coming back to is generic.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything. Like, it was different for them, but in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't very unique.
Yeah.
I will say, like, I can totally understand wanting to distance yourself from the idea of deathcore, because ever since the conception of metalcore, which is, to me, the only true genre that should have the word core in it.
Okay.
Because ever since metalcore became a thing in the early 2000s, in America at least, it's been this never-ending string of deathcore, grindcore, a horrorcore. Everything's got a core with it nowadays.
Well, there's a problem in general about the varying genres of metal. Yeah. Like, if you how are you going to define something by if it has breakdowns or not, or like, it's like, and that might be part of what Thy Art Is Murder is doing when they try and distance themselves from these labels, man. But I don't know. It's just like everything, you do one little thing different, like your drum pattern has, an extra snare hit in it or something, then you're suddenly a different genre. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, I've never understood. Like, I understand that certain styles have their own specific style of drumming, but the idea that a simple pattern of drums is what defines your genre to me has never made sense. Like, there's other shit that goes into it than just the drums. I mean,
well, the only place where it should matter is the type of drum, or I mean, granted, there are, there's like the simplistic 4/4 rock drum patterns. There's the, there's like reggae patterns that are kind of common, but really, like,
a lot of punk and
for metal, it's different.
A lot of punk and metal draws inspiration straight out of jazz and blues.
Yeah, that's because metal people who play metal are actually musicians, and most likely have studied jazz or classical, or take inspiration from those genres.
Well, those are probably the two genres that allow for the most, I think, improvisation and variation in what you do. Whether it's guitar, bass, drums, or vocals, you can get away with a lot more different stuff within the genre in blues and jazz and metal than you can in any other genre of music, even the other subgenres of rock, for that matter. You get away with a lot more just individuality, I think.
There's too many genres of rock, too.
There's too many subgenres of everything.
Yeah.
Like, it's because everybody wants to be. We're different. We're not deathcore. We're like melodic, supreme, symphonic, progressive deathcore. It's like just pick one, dude. Okay, just pick one.
always for my own music, I never quite like tacked down a genre per se. It's just indie, was always the genre. I think I'm going to start going with like gothic something, gothic rock or gothic indie.
When in doubt, just say alternative and call it a day. I mean, it's kind of the.
I don't know, but when I think of when I think of alternative now, I think of like, I don't know, like Foo Fighters or Dave Matthews Band. Just like generic.
To me, alternative music always just meant something that just kind of stood on its own, didn't really fall into any one particular umbrella, was just kind of itself unique. I mean, like Dave Matthews Band, I get. I mean, you hear a Dave Matthews Band song, you know a Dave Matthews Band song. That's a pretty easy to identify sound. I don't know. The genre thing is something we could talk about for hours on its own.
True. My favorite song on Dear Desolation was Death Dealer.
It's a good song.
But I also like Son of Misery. CJ's vocals in Son of Misery they tear me apart. They rip me to shreds.
CJ has got a scream on him. That dude's growls are something to aspire to. I mean, just wow. And
if you're
Son of Misery was like I heard Slaves Beyond Death was just kind of like, because when you hear the first track I think needs to set the tone for what the rest of the album is going to be. And when Slaves Beyond Death is the first song I hear, I'm kind of like, fuck, what did Robert get me into? What am I about to deal with? But then the very next song is Son of Misery, and I was like, oh, okay, all right. I'm not lost yet. All right, I'm back in.
Yeah.
So
it's a good song. If you're interested in hearing some more crazy vocalists, listen to the band Shadow of Intent.
Okay.
That's crazy stuff right there. That dude has he has like a monster in his mouth. I don't know what it is. But all right, so
what do you got for me for next week?
Next week, I want you to listen to the album Baby Metal by Baby Metal.
Oh, you're doing that on purpose.
It's a guilty pleasure of mine, and I want you to be pleasured by it guiltily.
God, oh man. People have been trying to get me to listen to baby metal since their conception. You finally found a way.
Yes.
You're making a lot of people happy.
Honestly, if it's a pretty unique thing. It's kind of like idol pop mixed with like death metal. It's pretty cool.
I mean, it's unique. I will give it that. It is unique, but we'll see. Maybe you'll make a believer out of me by next week. Who knows? We'll find out, I guess.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for the inaugural episode of Track Record, guys. I want to thank you so much for tuning in on iTunes or Spreaker or YouTube, wherever you happen to be enjoying this from. So I want to remind you guys, you can check us out on the Eventide Entertainment Podcast. Also check us out online, www.eventideemt.com. Make sure you go check out our Patreon campaign. Help us keep the lights on. Help us keep great podcasts like this going. That's at patreon.com/eventideent. As always, you can find me online, all the social media at Mike Shea Comedy. Robert, where can the good people find you online?
You can do, main thing is going to be Facebook, Citizen 7 on Facebook.
All right. Make sure you check out, also, Citizen 7's got some stuff in the works here, I believe, yes?
Yes, we'll see. Got my next album coming up. Hopefully will be released next year. I am working on recording it. I know you have listened to a couple of the songs.
I'm intrigued.
So it's going well. It's called Cardboard Coffins. So we'll get some gothic in there. That's what I'm going. I'm going with the gothic all the way, man. It's should we mention a possible music video coming?
Yeah,
for myself in the near future.
We're getting there. Unfortunately, a certain hairy beast sitting in the green chair behind me. If you're watching the video of this, you can see the green chair right there. Got a hold of the camera, so we're working on getting a hold of a proper camera so we can shoot that thing. Hopefully, we were honestly supposed to be shooting it by now, but things happen. So
it's okay.
But yeah, hopefully by the end of the year, if not by the end of the year, then by early next year, we'll have a music video, maybe two, for Citizen 7, for a song off the last EP and maybe something off the new record when the time comes to release that. So lots of great stuff. Got also, and then Robert, we've got a new podcast starting up on the 25th that Robert's going to be hosting, called Nerd Versus. Want to tell them a little bit about that?
Yes, it's essentially I wanted to do a compare contrast type podcast where I'm going to pit two things from nerddom and I'm going to have them battle, but really I'm going to, not unlike what I did with Alestorm in this podcast, I'm going to rip one or the other up because it's going to be a very subjective podcast. But so, to give you an example of the kind of episodes that will be on there, dub versus sub anime. I want to do the rebuild of Evangelion versus the Evangelion series. So there's, and I have more in the works. I am also looking for suggestions if anyone wants to see me do a podcast on, if they want me to compare some stuff together and, decimate one or the other. But you don't get to choose. You can just tell me if you want to see me do something.
And I'll tell you what, we'll make it real easy for you guys to do that. If you send a tweet to the Eventide Twitter, Eventide ENT, with the hashtag NerdVersus, NerdVS, with what you'd like, what two things from nerddom you'd like to see Robert pit against each other. We'll make that happen as well. We're gonna get trending. We're gonna be trending, Robert. We'll be trending.
Trend it up.
Trend.
Beautiful.
And then of course my
hashtag
show,
Gary Busey.
Hashtag Gary Busey will guarantee that he'll do your topic. And then don't forget my show, Mike Talks Funny, every Tuesday live at 9 p.m. on Spreaker. and then on iTunes and YouTube. The Life with Don Smith every Friday at 9 a.m., and we're hoping to fill the last slot of the week here soon. All that info, go to eventideent.com. You get everything you need to know there. And I think we're going to call this a show, Robert. I think we're calling this a show.
Sounds good. It was delightful.
It was very delightful. I'm going to go finish the rest of my beer and do some delinquent things here before bed. You guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys again next week.
Goodbye.